Just those slides.
Good
evening, everybody.
No.
Before we start the regular part of the board meeting, I'd like Trustee Hall to introduce our special, temporarily a guest.
So for those of you who haven't heard, this is Geisha. She's going to be the new student trustee in August. If you want to say a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So my name is Haisha Amen. I have been a social worker by trade for the past 12 years, just not by education. So that is why I'm here, FLCC.
Welcome.
Yeah,
Thank
we're
you.
thrilled to have you here. Trustee Cushman.
Thank you, Chair Cass. We will call to order the Education and Planning Committee this May 7th at 4:31 p.m. And first, a review of the committee meeting minutes from the last session. Any adjustments, questions, concerns? Hearing none, we'll move on. And as ever, Dr. Urbatus. Are you all ready for us? Enrollment update.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
So I'm going to provide a verbal update. In your packet is the last spring 2025 enrollment update for you. And we have transitioned to summer and fall. So summer, as of this past Friday, head count enrollment is up 1.8% and FTE enrollment is up 8.5%. Moving on to fall. Fall enrollment is currently down, head count 5.6%, with FTE being down 4.6%. We have just begun new student registrations, and the registration appointments look very healthy, looking out the next few weeks. So we're just getting started on fall. Any questions?
Just one.
Yes.
The numbers roughly this time of the year in comparison to last, in terms of what the fall looks like,
Okay.
roughly May of last year.
Say that again?
May of last year versus May of this year in terms of maybe a projection for the fall. Are we
Yes.
about the same percentages?
Actually, in terms of targets, we are projecting, flat.
Okay,
So pretty similar to last year as well.
numbers.
Yes. And time will tell, given the political environment.
Thank you.
Other questions?
The part-time continues to trend upward. Do you see that continuing, and where do you see that going in the future?
Part-time will continue to trend upward, right? We have many students who are working full-time and going to school part-time. And yes, I anticipate it will trend upward with a new program from New York State, Opportunity Promise Program, which will allow students to attend both full and part-time to pursue free community college.
It makes it harder to keep up with the FTE level though, right? I mean, it's more head count, but
It's not as predictable.
right.
Right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
And student success, Aubrey?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi, everyone. I'm Aubrey McClellan in the Office of Concurrent Enrollment. Today, I will be talking with you about the Early College Smart Scholars Early College High School Grant. Give you an overview, talk about funding, the timeline, and then the different pathways, enrollment, and curriculum within the grant. So this is a NICET initiative, grant-funded program of 5 years aimed at increasing college access for historically underrepresented students. We are doing this through partnering with public schools, colleges, and local enterprises. This initiative allows students to earn both their high school degree as well as college credit. I'll go into details in a bit. And they certainly have the potential to earn an associate's degree. It is all at no cost to the student or their families, so pretty huge impact. Locally, we are partnering with Geneva High School and Waterloo High School. The students are recruited in 8th grade and they start the program in 9th. In 9th grade, they will start to take college level coursework taught at the high school by their teachers. And at the minimum is 24 credits that they will earn of college credit and up to 60 over their 4 years in high school. Like I mentioned, it is a 5-year grant, and this actually was approved in 2024, about this time last year. So we're already gone through year 1. Geneva opted for a higher amount of funding based on the number of students they were looking to recruit. They looked to recruit a larger number than Waterloo, hence the funding differentiation. This covers administrative costs, college tuition, transportation, professional development, and summer programming that is incorporated into the grant. So, as I mentioned, students are recruited in 8th grade. They have a 1-day summer summer orientation, half at the high school. Then they come onto campus. We give them a tour, an overview of the program, both schools individually. In 9th grade, they'll start taking what we call GST 116. It's our college strategies course. It's our Gemini, part of our Gemini program. So again, they're earning college credit already in 9th grade. They come onto campus for a 2-week summer program between 9th and 10th grade. They'll spend time here as well as at our Geneva campus. And we have various, I'll have a schedule in a moment, but we'll cover various topics on how to be successful in college, but also give a good in-depth overview of the different pathways that they can choose from and the curriculum requirements of each. In 10th grade, they'll continue earning college courses or college credit through concurrent enrollment. Then in 11th grade, they'll come onto our Geneva campus to be able to take a class or two during the day. And then again in 12th grade, they'll come onto our main campus, earning more college credit. So here's a look at our current summer program. Again, it's 2 weeks. The first half of the day, they are at their respective high school. They're actually going to be working on CFP 105 word course. So they'll be, once again, earning college credit through that. They'll then come over to our campus after lunch. And we have some different programming going on. Goal setting, we'll have them do our Focus 2 assessments, which is a personal and career assessment. We'll talk about the review of that. We have each of the pathways giving an overview, as well as the student panel. We've built in some fun in there since it is summer and they're with us all day. So we've got a trip to Bristol, we've got a trip to Cornell. In the second week, we'll take them to Geneva campus for a bit, get them exposed to that. And then we'll be taking them offsite to these different partnerships who many are a part of the grants steering committee and work with us as we're formulating their curriculum and how we can better support industry locally. So the pathways to curriculum and enrollment. So Geneva is offering 3 pathways to their students: computer science, health sciences, which incorporates all 3 of our healthcare study majors, as well as nursing, so students can choose, and humanities. Their enrollment targets are about 65 every year, hence again, that higher grant funding. Waterloo currently has computer science and agriculture. Agriculture, the students can choose to follow our environmental sciences or horticulture pathways or majors. And then they are currently working on a humanities or a liberal arts STEM associates pathway. Again, their enrollment's a little lower at about 25 to 30 students. So they'll have a mix between Gemini being taught in their high school and then coming onto campus. They will earn potentially, certainly all these gen ed courses, depending on their pathway, but then I've specified some of the major courses that they'll start to take. So they don't dive too deeply in, but it's a really great opportunity for them to get, exposure to the major, make sure that is what they want to do post high school, or start to explore or just confirm what their current interests are. Any questions?
Questions from them?
So in your previous slide, I see there's some 200 level courses there as well, French, Spanish on the left and GIS. I'm not sure what GIS is, but so these are folks that come with experiences, so they're able to be at that 200 level or?
Yes, so for some of them, they will have already completed some form in Gemini in the high school.
Okay.
Like for the languages, it'll allow them to go into 201. For GIS, that is our Geographic Information Systems, which is a part of our environmental conservation programs. So yes, potentially, depending on their course sequencing, and we'll work with each student to make sure they are on the correct track, not only myself, but their counselors in the high school. And if they meet the prerequisites, they'll certainly enroll in them.
Just one follow-up. How was Geneva, and maybe you said this, Waterloo selected? Did they volunteer? Did we select them? How did that happen?
Yes, they apply.
They applied.
Yeah, so we are merely a partner in this. We didn't put in an application for this grant. Geneva did and Waterloo did respectively.
With state ed. State ed chose that.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee S.
A couple questions. Just an observation though. What struck me about this is that you take it over the whole high school career.
Correct.
So you've got students at least cognizant of and thinking about college really early on, which I think is great. And I think the pace over all those years is good.
Yes.
The question I have is I was looking at this, I was trying to understand this program in the context of other programs that the college has that target disadvantaged students. And if somebody could just orient me to that, it would help. It doesn't have to be right now, but. Go
We
ahead.
certainly have many that do target right students who are represented. I think this differs to some of them because it is more structured and they're limited to those pathways to choose from, as opposed to maybe just any major
Any,
here on
okay.
campus. And a part of those were proposed to support local industries, and then again, just kind of partner with them, and that's why so many of them are on the steering committees. So I think it's just a more specified kind of target approach for these students to choose from.
So to continue on or add on to it, we have an MOU that we're waiting to be signed with Geneva School District, which would then expand to some of those types of students you're talking about that they want to support. And I won't, this one, Aubrey, you mentioned it's limited to those particular programs that they chose. They might do the same thing with other programs, but they're looking to help support students that are lower income students.
Okay.
Do you have the ability to build this out to other school districts as you go forward? Is the infrastructure there?
Potentially, there are a lot of other school districts. Fulton is sort of was sort of the guinea pig for all this. They started well over 6 years ago, partnering with CCC. There are many partnerships. There's certainly, I think there is a possibility for high schools to change who they partner with. They would have to certainly propose that or put in for that when NICET. But yes, I certainly do see the potential of this, especially once it's kind of built out and a rinse repeat in a certain way.
Great.
Two questions. And first, Aubrey, I just want to thank you for presenting this and doing this work. It's so important. And apologize about the technical stuff. We can't live with it, can't live without it, but you powered right through it like a pro. So thank you for that. First, how are the teachers, the high school teachers, and how are they compensated? Is there compensation for them? How does that work?
So we don't compensate them. They would be, so for the instructors who are teaching our Gemini courses. So these are college FLCC courses taught in the high school by their high school teacher. They are vetted through us and each one of our department chairs. We make sure they have the correct credentialing. But they are not paid any more from us for teaching Gemini. Now, some of the high school teachers who may teach a summer course for these students would then be compensated through the grant.
And the second one is, any of the churn coming from the federal sector impacting what you're doing, or do you have concerns that it may?
I haven't heard anything yet. And we've been asking these, Waterloo administrator just met with a representative from NICEAD and asked her that same question. And she doesn't foresee it being impacted. We're in year 2, right? Like time will tell. So yeah, unfortunately, that's my answer.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah,
Any other questions from the board?
this gentleman here.
Very good.
Yes, so I'm really interested in the other 23 school districts in Wayne Finger Lakes BOCES. You know, there's 25 districts across 3 or 4 counties. So, was it free and reduced? Is that how they did the targeting of Geneva and Waterloo? And did they identify them as greatest need? Or how did this, I only ask because of equity and access, you know, that's what, you know, especially being a community college, we want equity and we want access.
Right.
So I'm just wondering if you've got a program that is highly structured and it's very well tiered and thoughtful and comprehensive. I could see this being exceptionally effective in terms of outcomes, in terms of direct experiences. So, that would be my only question.
Sure. I'm not sure how NICEAD went about picking the schools that did apply.
Yeah,
Just knowing, I mean, Geneva is extremely diverse in their student population, right, in the area. And certainly a lot of underrepresented students, students that are first generation, right, who's maybe English wasn't even their first language, right? So I think trying to just increase that, I don't know if they did look at their free and reduced lunch rates. I feel like it may have been something more because now so many schools have almost 100% free and reduced lunch rates. So I'm sure there were other factors. As far as how the schools are identifying students, we've done parent nights and they've certainly done a lot of marketing and information out to them. And then really just whoever's applying, they fortunately have not exceeded their count yet. So they're really not turning anyone as far as the students who are applying.
okay, thanks.
What kind of educational supports are the students who are coming on the main campus getting since they're at a college level course?
Yes, so I'll be their main point of contact. And certainly with our summer program leading up to when they're actually here, because they won't come onto campus until 11th grade. So we'll have plenty of time with them beforehand, programming different workshops to just prepare them to be here on campus. We've done tours already, but certainly letting them be informed about the different student support services that are on campus and checking in with them regularly. I also have great relationships with the counselors as well as the administrator who are overseeing the grants in the respective schools. So I have no doubt that our lines of communication about the students, between the students and us, will be very clear.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We've got a lot of good questions, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. On to couple of resolutions. Brittany, lead off.
I have 6 here for you tonight. So the first one is the Associate of Academic Innovation and Learning Resources. This position was previously titled Associate Vice President of Academic Technology and High Impact Practices. It remains in Group 2 in Management Confidential Unit. We have the Director of Facilities and Grounds. This job description was revised and updated to reflect current job responsibilities and remains in Group 3 for Management Confidential. The Financial Aid Counselor, the job description was revised and updated to reflect current job responsibilities and has moved from Group D to Group C of the Professional Association. We have the Senior Admissions Counselor. This is a new position. It was designed as an advanced level above the entry-level admissions counselor role and is Group C of the Professional Association. The Slate CRM Analyst is a new position. It is designed to be responsible for managing the Slate CRM and is in Group C of the Professional Association. And then we have the Technical Specialist 2 for Environmental Conservation. This is also a new position and was created to take on responsibilities of higher nature within the department and is in Group D of the Professional Association.
Any questions?
Just one clarification, they're new positions, but they're an upgrade to an existing position. They're not new positions.
It was well documented. Appreciate it. Gave us a chance to review. Thank you. And to program deactivation, reactivation, and discontinuation policy. Dr. Ortiz.
Good evening. I bring to you this evening for your consideration revisions to policy 8-25 on the program deactivation, reactivation, and discontinuance. And basically, the primary revisions were to increase the data that is utilized to inform decisions on these processes. Also to make sure that the criteria that we are looking at is regularly reviewed and revised. And also to ensure that our shared governance and our relevant stakeholders are part of the process throughout. And then finally, just to make sure that we have a cycle of continuous quality improvement on the instrument and the process.
Questions?
Questions?
Again, well laid out for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And speaking of shared governance, strategic plan presentation, and we'll start with Professor Johnson. And I'm particularly pleased to be having Professor Johnson and Professor Bush speak to us today because we had a really, really informative committee meeting to really explore shared governance. And it's so critical for this process because this board doesn't make policies. You wouldn't want us to make policies, but we do approve them. And there's a lot of work that goes into it. And I think it's going to be really something we want to do on a regular basis to keep us informed on these processes. So Professor Melton.
Well, thank you very much. And I do want to thank you for that opportunity to come and to meet and to discuss shared governance. Shared governance is a bit of a passion of mine. I've been head of the academic senate now for most recently 6 years. Previously, I served on a couple committees, the standing committees, as well as a few of our ad hoc committees that typically form around issues that get raised. This year, I wanted to kind of update you on what we've done up to this point. So as of May 1st, we had 20 total program changes or program revisions. This included most recently our nursing program, which was approved for a revision to a Math 115 course offering. Not so much when the course, well, primarily when the course is being offered so that our nursing students are not forgetting the stuff that they learned in 115, for example, calculating dosages. So those skills are, again, on timely when received. And we also approved a new program. This was a wine service management certificate, which will start in the spring of 2026. That program will be at Senate for approval and then forwarding on after that. We discontinued 2 tracks. These tracks were formerly a part of our hospitality management program. Had 3 separate tracks due to declining enrollments. The business department moved with removing 2 of the tracks and focusing their efforts on 1 track, which will be called the Events and Hospitality Management Program. So again, a rename of the program, but an intent to address declining enrollments in those 3 tracks to combine them into 1. We've had, in addition to those program changes, 17 course revisions, 5 new courses, including courses on podcasting, course deactivation, where we removed a bio
designation from a conservation introduction to environmental science course. And a new program announcement that went out to SUNY earlier this year, esports development program. In addition to the daily work of our curriculum and assessment committees, our student experience committee researched several issues that were brought to them by either staff or students. Midterm grade procedures was a follow-up recommendation on a midterm grade process. And so we adjusted some of the timing and when those and how those are submitted. We also reviewed a course outline template that the Senate had created in 2022 and looking to make sure that all course outline submissions are indeed following our template. In addition, the Senate, as you heard mentioned with the program deactivation, reactivation, and discontinuance policy, we also approved, and I think this body has already approved, the program approval process, A15. In addition to those substantive policy revisions, we spent some time on our shared governance exec committee. We looked at 24 policies that had minor revisions, with one being forwarded to College Council for additional consideration. Under review right now, we have a policy around academic integrity and grievance. This is a new policy / policy revision to incorporate an academic integrity element of our present academic grievance policy. So we have, of course, representatives from all academic areas, but we also speak to the academic side of the house. And so when our online learning department came to us and sought the creation of an online learning advisory board, we helped to formulate that board, and we'll seat that board this spring, and then hopefully they'll begin meeting in the fall. Unlike our standing committees, this will be online learning advisory board will report to us on a periodic basis, as they will only meet periodically as well. Ongoing activities and report outs to Senate include from our faculty council of community colleges delegate, who reports actively on what's happening at the state university level. Pleased to hear that we also have a nice leadership among the board members here. Our Middle States liaison also provides us updates with what's happening at the federal level. We've had presentations from Chief Information Officer Ed Kelty on classroom technology changes. We've most recently, and probably most importantly, have received several updates from our Disability Services Coordinator, Melissa Souls, around two big issues. One, the growth in students with disabilities and changes to accommodations that impact teaching in the classroom, as well as the upcoming Title II changes that need to be implemented by April of 2026. So on our radar and early and looking out forward, we have the Title II changes. We have the changes to the SUNY Gen Ed framework, the competencies around information literacy, AI, as well as civic discourse. We're starting to see some courses come through in the comm area to address those issues around civic discourse in particular. We're going to formulate a small group to look at our current information literacy outcome and to crosswalk it with the SUNY definition and the SUNY outcomes. Locally here at FLCC, you're probably familiar with our values, but we also have a learning framework, and that learning framework has been in existence now for roughly 10 years. And with SUNY's changes, we're also exploring ways in which we might address those SUNY changes and absorb them within our learning framework. Ongoing conversations around pinch points and departments and programs have experience trying to align their current programs to the framework will also be a part of a future look at revisions. Unknown yet, but still waiting to see what occurs is our SUNY Transfer Task Force. That task force was formed at SUNY and has made several recommendations, and we're still waiting to see kind of how that's going to impact our programs. If you know something about SUNY transfer and how it's been a long drawn out process, both with seamless transfer and now what the task force is attempting to accomplish. We're hoping for some good things, but certainly changes in the air. Our membership is involved in several of our college initiatives. The President's AI think tank, obviously we get regular reports out from that group. Also we're providing input into them into a potential AI policy. Nash Google is another area where we have been involved in a SUNY initiative, and we have members who report back to our body. SUNY Credit for Higher Learning Initiative, which you approved a policy that was written largely by an ad hoc committee of college-wide staff and faculty. That credit for prior learning process is ongoing, and so we're going to continue to see that. And of course, we're looking at how it dovetails into our SUNY SUNY Adult Learner Leadership Initiative. This initiative is ongoing as well and has an end date soon approaching. So, any questions about kind of what is happening within our academic senate and its subcommittees?
It's a lot. Just real quickly, just for the benefit of the board, how many faculty are involved on this, in this committee, in the faculty senate? And how often do you meet?
So great questions. We meet every 3 weeks. So we typically meet we'll meet the third week of the semester. And then from there, we'll schedule out 3 weeks, assuming that Thanksgiving or spring break doesn't interrupt the cycle, but typically every 3 weeks. In terms of the faculty, I would use the small f faculty to incorporate many of our staff. So the academic senate membership is roughly around 20. That includes administration as well as student reps. In terms of our subcommittees, the freestanding committees include curriculum, which has members of each academic department. It also has members of the library, enrollment management, as well as specific staff who are in our student affairs area. The same is true also, minus a few people, on our academic assessment committee in terms of its scope of membership. And then our student experience committee is our youngest committee, and this committee is it's a largely student-facing offices committee. So we have appointments from our enrollment management, from student affairs, from the faculty, and students as well. And the students are really the kind of the drivers of that committee in terms of bringing a lot of issues forward, whether that's to staff or whether that's directly to their student representation. And so that's our youngest committee, and it sits around 15. So in total, very few members cross across each of those committees. So I would say close to 50 or more staff and faculty involved in the total of their governance.
Wow, that's impressive. Other questions from the?
First of all, thank you, Professor Johnson, for the update. You mentioned in your report that middle states provide you insights in terms of what's happening maybe from a federal standpoint. Seems to be top of mind. It is top of mind. I'm curious if there have been any recent updates.
Nothing that we're aware of at this point. The accreditation, Deborah, I'm sure could probably speak more elegantly to this as she is our liaison. But as far as we're aware of, we've seen a few executive orders. One most recently, I think, addressed the accreditation standards and who the accreditors can be and what the expectations are. So I think that's probably the most recent update. I don't know if Deborah has anything to share in her thought process or thought aspect of the presentation.
It's a very fluid moment in accreditation updates. So I actually get updates almost every day, but most of them are along the lines of what Professor Johnson already mentioned, sort of digging into executive orders, what they might mean, and that further action will be forthcoming. There's not been any new policy by the states.
I guess I have one. First of all, thank you both. The Department of Education and all that's happening or not happening, has there been any direct effect with regard to the work of the academic senate or some of your planned work, let's say, in the near future?
Well, I think we have to keep an ear to the ground. Part of our challenge is really understanding what potential changes could come with the SUNY general education. As far as we know, SUNY has not come under the microscope for its efforts in the DEISJ knowledge and skills area. But that is certainly one thing that I think we're all waiting and listening for and trying to determine what the possible impact of that could be. In terms of the Department of Education, our Faculty Council of Community Colleges rep has submitted to us a resolution by that body seeking support of the U.S. Department of Education by our Senate and delegation. So again, that idea of drafting a resolution of support, asking for direct support for that body.
Again, thank you. So that, yeah.
Other questions? One regarding AI, it's, speaking of fluid, that's changing, it feels like by the minute. How difficult is it or to create policies when things are changing so fast, and how are you accommodating those changes in the policies, your discussions with faculty on how that works?
Well, part of, I think, the way that we're approaching AI is much like any other tool that students can use to create work and represent their own work. We certainly want to teach students how to use AI effectively, and I think that's our main thrust right now is how do we use it effectively, how do we teach students to use it effectively. In terms of any resource that is used to create work, how do students actually formulate a sources cited page? How do they acknowledge support or the assistance of an AI tool? That tends to be more of the focus point as well from the policy perspective. So that's looking at our academic integrity. We've updated that language to make sure that we address following course syllabi rules around how does a instructor require or not require the use of AI. The point was made earlier, the question was made earlier about equity and access. And I think that's something else that we're really thinking about in terms of how AI makes its way into the classroom and into the curriculum, given that some students could potentially pay for access at a point greater than some of our other students could afford to pay for AI access. What does that look like, and how do we end up incorporating those tools and trainings into our programs? And so the Google National Initiative is certainly it's going to be a great opportunity there to explore some of these questions. And so I think we're going to be waiting to see how we align both the Google National Initiative with our efforts around information literacy, looking specifically at maybe first year experience opportunities. So there's sort of a lot right now to try to just see where the synergies are going to provide for opportunity.
Fun. It's just so impressive how deeply the thought process is going into all of this. Appreciate that. Any other questions for Professor Johnson? Dr.
I just for what it's worth, I know the College Board over the past 20 years has really put more of a laser sharp focus on community colleges, creating a whole separate division. And I know that they've written a lot of policies and a lot of papers around equity and excellence and fairness. And so I would hope that whoever the rep is or the committee is would bring some of that thinking to FLCC.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is, of course, my colleague, Josh Bush, who sees the other side of them.
Good afternoon, everyone. I echo Professor Johnson's statements of thank you for inviting us here this afternoon to give you an update on what we have accomplished this last academic year. So for College Council, some things that we endorsed are the institutional DEI plan. Dr. Covington came and gave us an update about where we're going with that. I believe that's one thing that came through this body as well. So we did endorse that, as well as the 2+2 strategic plan grant committees. So looking at all the different proposals that came through, we had 2 representatives from College Council on that committee who looked at all the proposals and made the decision that we ultimately endorsed. For policies, the governance exec had a review of policies, and the FMLA was thought to have substantial changes. So that came through the governance process, that came through College Council, and that was approved. Also, we approved the SUNY-driven policy related to no single-use plastics on campus, which includes the use of balloons. And we did ask for the change because some science courses use balloons in their courses. So the policy ultimately reads that we can't use single-use plastics for non-academic uses. So we're still allowing them in the classroom for those experiments. From the student side, the student core reps brought forward the concern that timely care was not a well-known item. And that's the app that students can use for medical help or mental counseling. So we kind of strategized a couple different ways to promote timely care. It was cautioned not to promote it to the whole campus because it's only for matriculated students. So just having that as a caveat on a couple suggestions were posters in bathrooms to allow students to get the information in a more private setting. So they don't have to go to anybody and nobody knows that they're using the Timely Care app, as well as having student representatives come to the classroom to talk about the Timely Care app and what it can be used for. The Food Service Committee was a subcommittee of College Council that was disbanded during the last council meeting. As we have members on the association, we felt that it was duplicate reporting, so that was disbanded. The biggest project that's going into the next academic year is the Governance Assessment Committee. So it was felt that there wasn't a really reporting structure as far as governance and all the subcommittees. So there is the creation of a committee, the Governance Assessment Committee, who recently formed to get a sense of what the campus knows and what they feel about the governance process, the reporting process, to get a sense of how many committees are on campus. So that will be rolling into the next academic year. Some other outstanding items, a big topic this last year was creation of an anti-bullying policy, which had a lot of interest from the campus community. So we've been talking about it in many of our council meetings, and it's our hope to vote on it during our meeting tomorrow. The other outstanding item is the use of tents and camping on the campus grounds. There was a request for some clarification on the purpose of that policy, so that is currently being looked into as well. So they're kind of our outstanding items. Is there any questions for me?
Any questions? No questions?
Hopefully next year there'll be more to share with you, but like I said, the anti-bullying policy took a lot of the meeting time.
Yeah, I did have one quick question on that. You said a lot of interest in the campus. Is that primarily from students, or is that more pretty evenly distributed by even faculty and so forth?
Most of it came from faculty. There were some from students, but it's more faculty and staff policy because we have the student code of conduct for the student side.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, I can see where that would take up.
It took up a good portion of our meeting, but it's our goal to get it voted on tomorrow.
Good, good.
So-
Look forward to getting that. Any other questions?
No, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
It's outstanding. Thank you. Thank you both for coming in, and you don't have to suffer through everything if you don't want to.
But you can if you'd like to.
Get a pup ready to run out.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Orloff, for attention update, which we report on a regular basis.
Where's the remote on? Things over.
It's not a big deal, Cheryl, it's fine. So I was asking her to put it up here because there's a lot of numbers and it is easier for me to be precise if I can see them a little bit better, but we'll go with this. So, hi, everyone. Nice to see you again. So as Trustee Cushman said, this is one of our fairly regular updates that we do on retention. And as you may recall, for those of you who've been playing along for a little while, at this time of year, we look at the fall to spring retention, which is sometimes also called persistence, meaning the student persists from fall to spring. In general, we use the term retention here, but you sometimes may hear it referred to as persistence as well. And for fall to spring retention, a quick reminder that here at FLCC, we use or calculate retention in two different ways, traditional and all student. Prior to a few years ago, you would have only seen traditional numbers. That's what you see reported, for example, in iPads or on federal databases. And while that's great and allows you to benchmark against other colleges, it only looks at first-time, full-time students, which is a very, very narrow cut of our students. So we transitioned a number of years ago to do calculate on the traditional method because we need to for reporting and we need the ability to benchmark. And we do that for our fall enrollment. So when I speak with you every fall and look at that full year of retention where we look at both first-time, full-time and all students. And in the spring, we really focus on all students. And when you look at new students, that gives you somewhat of a comparison to that traditional because new students are by definition in that first time category. So just a reminder of some of the parameters of our reporting. So overall, our retention fall to spring, it dipped very, very slightly from last fall to spring, but it is within the range of a 5-year high. And as you see the other numbers that I'm going to be reporting to you, we are seeing some success in our retention efforts, and that is bearing out in these numbers. So more specifically, you know, when we dig into that 76% retention rate fall to spring, and we see that very slight dip over last year, that's coming from a very slight decline in transfer and continuing students. Our new students are equal to last year, and our returning students were actually retained at a 5-year high, meaning when I compare them to the retention from last year, it's actually higher. So on par, these numbers are essentially the same from last year and this year. And until we would see a repeat of that new or that transfer and continuing, would not call that a trend. It's a pretty minor dip in number to take action on. So just in the next couple of slides, I'm just going to highlight sort of a key takeaway for us to be thinking about. And a lot of this centers on issues of equity. And as you all know, we've talked quite a bit about wanting to close the equity gap and to be really looking at how our students of color are retained when we consider our white students. So we have several different slides that will look at this in different ways, but overall, we see a 5-year high in our retention of students of color. Now, that does not mean we've closed the equity gap. Our white students are still retained higher, but what we see is a 5-year high. That's the basis for closing an equity gap. If you're not seeing gains overall, you can't close an equity gap. So it's a really important finding. And again, these are in our matriculated students of color that we're looking at right now. Okay, so more specifically, as you may recall from the various other times I've spoken with you, when we break down our students of color, our African-American students are particularly vulnerable to a lack of retention or a lack of persistence. So when we, again, disaggregate a little bit further and dig in to those data, yes, the students of color are at a 5-time high, and our African-American students are at a 5-time high. So all of that is leading us towards that conclusion that we're seeing an impact on our equity measures as it relates to retention. So a couple of other items that we always look at. This is not a new finding. I report this every year. Our students with disabilities continue to show a higher retention rate than our students without disabilities. That is noteworthy. That is not a trend you would see everywhere else. But it's also something we want to continue to keep an eye on, because as you heard me talk about, as well as others in other presentations, the enrollment of students with disabilities continues to go up and up. And so that's a population that is growing. We want to make sure our retention efforts, which have always been strong, remain strong as that population gets larger. And this year it has maintained that. Traditional age students are retained at a fairly significantly, not statistically significant, percentage point higher than our adult students, but our adult student retention is not problematically low. It's 70% versus 78%. And I think that is also a number that, as we continue refining some of our retention efforts, we'll continue to look at how those are best suited for that population. As Dr. Abetis already mentioned, with the advent of the new SUNY program / state program for adult learners, that will also be a particular metric we're going to want to continue to follow. And we're also theoretically also going to have other resources to serve those students. So again, some movement on this. It's not a problematic number. I'm not flagging it to you, but it's an area where we want to continue to look at equity between the different groups. Okay, so I want to transition to talking about some of those retention measures that I've referenced now several times. And just a real brief reminder, we have 3 active retention efforts going on that exist for different amounts of time and through different funding mechanisms. The main thing that I want to point out to you here on this particular slide, though, is just to remind you what they are: EOP, ASAP, and PACE, all of which, for all intents and purposes, serve as wraparound service programs. They provide a variety of interventions to help students in the program with academic and non-academic services. But the first 2, those on the left, EOP and the ASAP program, are selective programs, meaning certain students meeting certain criteria are put in or accepted into that program, often through an actual application process, depending on EOP in particular. There's a lengthy application process. So those programs are great, but they are by design selective. Whereas the PACE program is designed to be available to any student in the department that has PACE. Now, right now, PACE is in a pilot program. That means it's only available for those departments. It's a fairly large number of our departments, but it's not all of our departments. So there's theoretically sort of a degree of selectivity, but any student in that department who's a first-year student is automatically included in PACE. So it does not operate on the premise of selection, which the other 2 programs do. And that's an important difference as we start to look at impact. Okay, so our overall understanding of these programs, they do have slightly different scale and reach. We talked about selectivity. We have 46 active students in EOP in this data set, right? 152 active students in ASAP and 292 active students in PACE. When I say active, that's particularly important for PACE because as we talked about, it's available to any student in that department. And how we've measured this is to really look at those students who engaged with PACE, meaning became active in it, versus in that same department, students who did not engage with it. It was available to them, but they did not participate. So also broadly, you can see the numbers. I'll point out specifically on PACE, we do have equitable participation, meaning the proportion of students of color is equal to the proportion of students of color in the main population versus within the program. And then you can see across the other two programs how that plays out. Overall, fix that 3 times. That is incorrect. You'll see the right number on the next slide. The retention rates are quite high, meaning they're doing very well, particularly in EOP, that should be 89%, and in ASAP. So those percentage points are much higher than that 76% that I gave you for the general population. So on the PACE program, we're seeing a 75% retention rate. But we're going to dig into that number a little bit more, and there's a lot more to that story than what that looks like. Okay, so first, just digging into EOP, 89.1% of the EOP students are retained fall to spring. That's great. That has traditionally been a very strong retention program. I've not seen it dip below 80% in the time that I'm here, but notably it's up 7 percentage points since last year, which contributes to, you know, all of the ships rising as we see these different interventions successfully retaining. That's how we get that bigger number up for all of our students. ASAP, this is the first time we've had full data on it, right? This started last year, so this is the first time we've actually had real data. I've given you some free data, so to speak, as we've looked along the way, but this is the first time we've actually had real data or full data on it. And we see an extremely high retention rate, 83.9%. I mean, Dr. Nye would say he wants it to be 100%, but it's still a great impact there. However, when we look into that just a little bit more, again, all good things, but when we're looking through an equity lens, we do see a disproportionate gain for white students in the program. So what that means is it is overall helping all students with retention, and that's how we get that 83.9%. But the white students are benefiting more than the students of color in the program. And that's in general where we see equity gaps happening. The gains are not as large for some of our underrepresented minority groups, or you could put in first generation or other variables that we would want to look at. Okay. So now let's look at PACE. So PACE, there are a couple of key things we want to talk about. One, I mentioned to you how we're measuring this is looking at how students who are active in the program versus students in the same department are retained. Broadly, we can also compare it to that general retention rate, but when we look at it within the program, it gives us a better understanding of if it was available, did it help? In addition, that means participation or that active status is really important for us to watch. And what we've seen is not only do we have a bigger number now of how many students can actually be involved, so 44% of FLCC students have access to PACE, could engage with it. That's up from last year. And then this number, we have of that 44%, we have 55% of them are actively engaged. Do we want it to be 100%? Absolutely. But that 55% is up over up from 30% in 1 year. So the project or the intervention is gaining traction and reputation and ability to interact and garner student activeness or engagement. And that in turn means, okay, so they're actively engaged, does it work?
Just to that statistic, I mean, that's a large jump from 30 to 55. You point to
I can briefly, and Dr. Ortiz can also speak to this, that project falls under her area. But part of this is what happens when you're designing initiatives and interventions. It does take time for projects to get fully staffed and to start functioning in systematic enough ways that they can see that. And that's the basic answer here. It's a pilot and we see that. You want to add it?
No, the infrastructure.
Yeah. And we've had some steadiness in the counselors as well, which I think is great and hopefully will be maintained. That's always, a challenging turnover area. Okay, so all of that said, when we do all of these measurements, is it working? For the first time since I've worked here, we have closed an equity gap. It's really major news. It's so major, I asked Dr. Nye to not include that slide in your packet because I wanted to reveal it here. Because it's that exciting. It's really, really hard to close equity gaps. It's what we talk about in education all the time. We talk about it in K-12 all the time. We talk about it in community colleges. We talk about it at Harvard, right? Closing equity gaps is incredibly challenging to do. And for the first time since I've worked here for a decade, these numbers are showing that we closed an equity gap. It's very exciting. So let me explain that a little bit more. The long and the short of it is that while in ASAP we saw a disproportionate gain for white students, all students were helped, but the white students felt that help a little bit more. The opposite is happening here. We see a disproportionate gain for students of color overall, 5.2% versus 12.7%. And in particular for our African-American students, which, as you recall, what is our most vulnerable population. So when we help our most vulnerable population the most of the groups that need it, that's where we see that rise and that ability to close an equity gap. So for African-American students and white students, their retention rates were almost identical within a 0.5 percentage point of each other. For those of you who are sort of data nerds like me, I will also share with you that this is a statistically significant finding with a high effect score, medium effect size. So that tells us that this gain is less likely to be by accident and more because of the direct intervention. That being said, you always have to repeat, right? This is the first time we've gotten it. Could it be a one-off? It could be. It absolutely could be. It could be that we had a fantastic group of counselors and a fantastic group of students that made magic happen.
But your first comment kind of indicated that maybe we've achieved or hit this target.
Yes, we have hit the target.
So it might be the new benchmark with which to work.
Yes. The question will be next year when I stand here, do I tell you we hit it again?
Fair.
The other question is are those students we retained fall to spring? And this intervention is specifically designed for first semester students to persist to get to their second semester. Does that persistence pay off? And do we retain them to the fall? So there are continued questions that we need to ask. But in my career, I have never been able to talk about closing an equity gap, ever, across 3 states and multiple institutions. So I think it's something we should be really, really excited about.
Absolutely. From achieving the dream experience that I just, and it poses so many questions for me that I'm sure you're dealing with too, like, you want to disaggregate the data further, why, what happened here?
Yeah, there's a lot to dig in.
But what really made that impact, but this is wild.
It's pretty exciting. I've been geeking out about it for a little while. Everyone's had to put up with me. Sure.
Yeah, this is very exciting. This is a very big deal. And so it always tempts you to look at the controlling variables,
Yes,
and to really to begin to tease them out.
yes,
And
absolutely.
really dig into them with staff and
Yeah.
stack that up against best practices in other places.
Yeah.
And see if that is, if you're onto something there. So,
Yeah.
Congratulations. I mean,
The congratulations goes to all the
Well, I
people doing the work.
understand.
I just run the numbers.
well, it's, I disagree with you. It really, it starts at the top and works its way down, starts at the bottom, works its way up.
Yeah.
Either way, whatever model you are invested in, I mean, congratulations to the
Appreciate
entire. It does take an entire team.
It does. And
And
it is
that
exciting.
team really has to be, you know, they have to all wear the same uniforms and
Yeah.
there you go, you know.
Yeah.
It takes
It's
a
a-
long time to get everyone to, you know, to
Yeah.
wear that same uniform, all with their own individual numbers.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work
Any other way.
automatically. you
Yeah.
know.
Yes.
It's a very big deal.
It is a big deal, and I am excited to see where we go. We do have some plans for some further statistical fun this summer with these data. Probably the most important thing is to follow the students to the fall and then again to next spring. So some of this just takes time because we need more of the intervention to happen, but that doesn't diminish from the moment that we know we're on to something and we continue improving it and working through it.
Yeah, it also could go to recruitment too, in terms of, you know, underserved populations and,
Absolutely.
you know, and it's because now you have a story that's.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
We accept you lots.
Yes.
So
And we're here to truly support you and we have numbers to back that.
I gotta say, what's kind of bouncing around in my head a little bit is, you know, the reason I came on was to impact my community. That's why we call it community college.
Yes, true story.
But when we are dealing with our legislators, both locally, the county and the state, the impact that this has to the taxpayer, honestly, that we're able to make this kind of a move, I think is notable.
Absolutely.
And I don't know how to, I caution to jump too high on this, but
Yeah.
at least say that there's a trend here and kind of reaffirm with those folks who do fund us that we're making progress that impacts everybody in this county.
Absolutely.
You know, it's also, you bring up an excellent point, both of you, in that when you think about the word community, it's almost in some respects counter to what we're hearing and understanding about individual communities in which we reside, where we've heard a different message.
Yes.
It is a standalone. It is in contrast to certainly even the feel or the vibe. And Dr. Covington probably could speak to this better than most, but the trend lines that you showed in your first, and I'll leave it up there again, graph, and the other 5 trailing were certainly.
Yeah, they're pretty
Maybe
consistent.
just
to
kind of
trend
take
line
that
is.
pencil. So
Mhm.
my question is, the tools or the initiatives that you have, is there something else out there that is magical or a boy we'd really like? And I always like to say, hate to have money get in the way of a good idea, but if there is an
I mean,
opportunity, is there something out there that would be, boy, if we really had to maybe continue this trend?
I think one caveat that's important here just to contextually is the next step for the PEACE project is to expand to all of the departments. You saw that right now it's in,
Right.
5 departments, which is half of our departments. That is happening under the Title III grant that we've received from the federal government. That project is now fully staffed and it will go into effect next year. Obviously, the federal context here is one to keep an eye on.
Yep.
And that expansion of something that we're showing to be very successful is contingent upon that funding as it currently stands. So that's something I think for this board to be aware of, for cabinet. As to, are there other things, I would call on my colleague, Dr. Ortiz, if there are other items that we should particularly name or talk about in terms of supporting this work.
Well, and I think the additional success coaches through Title III, and we have already started implementing that with our free success coaching prior to new student registration. So making sure that we're connecting students to resources and making sure that they're prepared for their experience on the front end. So I think that as we develop this and in our strategic enrollment, I'm looking at Carol. We have a lot of conversation around making sure that students have the information on the front end, make sure that they're getting into the right classes, into the right programs. So I think all of you, when Sarah Whiffen came and presented to you all on the 3 programs and with the new introduction of Title III, our ability to provide those success coaches for all students, I think it's going to have a significant impact as well.
Absolutely. What you're talking about is you're redefining academic advising, you know, and,
Yes.
this is a very big step in the right direction.
From the compliments, we compliment. Right. Dr. Ortiz's point about onboarding, we need to do a better job with onboarding because at the present time, students are admitted, they schedule their registration appointment, they meet with an academic advisor, but there's so much more we could be doing between point of admission and point of meeting with an advisor in terms of setting them up for success, making sure they are pursuing the correct degree program, et cetera. There's, you know, and that's on our radar right now, and expanding the success coach model will help. And then with the implementation of the New York State Opportunity Promise Program, there will be funding available to us to also provide those kinds of supports to adult students as well.
I do have just one more. It kind of stands out. The matriculated students are eligible for the PACE.
PACE.
And are we limited to just matriculated due to PACE? We can't make it.
Under the current funding,
Okay.
and I would argue, although feel free to not agree with me, it's a good idea to start an intervention with a group that is more accessible and more engaged, so you can figure out, you can get your infrastructure built, you can get things. And then I think you begin to say what's next and what might that need to do to look different. When we talk about adult students, wraparound services, for example, are still going to be beneficial, but that they may need to look different than they do for our traditional age students. So no, and yes.
That was a very cautious answer.
Yeah.
Can't argue with that.
One thing that I will add that we also need to make sure is front and center is the wraparound services, the coaching, the advising is all critically important, but also the inclusive teaching excellence in the classroom.
Yeah.
So that is in terms of retention, right? It's one thing. So that is another area that we are focusing on as well.
And that's essentially another, yeah, I'm sorry, that's essentially another intervention that complements this one. But it's equally important for, again, all ships to rise.
Trustee, yes, I think.
Just a couple of comments. An outstanding achievement by any standards, even if it's just for this period of time,
Yeah.
right?
Place to go.
And like some of the other trustees here, my head starts thinking about, okay, what's it mean? How do we use it?
Yeah.
So I think your comments about seeing this through, like next year, spring to fall to spring again. And if that same trend continues, or at least is sustained,
Yes.
then if that's a long enough period of time, you can begin to make some
Yes.
claims. So I had two thoughts. Long term, there's an academic paper in it for somebody if
Yeah.
this continues. The second thing is, even in the short term, and for a short period of time, this has value in terms of lobbying legislators, particularly in New York, because the legislators in the party that really has power represent the greatest number of minority students.
good point. Yeah.
And there's an opportunity here to say, look, fund is better and you'll get more results like this.
No, it's a good
So-
point. Absolutely.
That's a couple thoughts, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely.
kudos to everybody who's been involved.
Two things, George, you gotta work in that 8 million so it doesn't get restricted.
Yeah.
State's going to give us.
That would be great.
Sure.
But Supervisor Willie, you said something that's important. You were complimenting all the people. Well, you need to compliment yourselves because the PACE program is what you approved when we asked for $500,000 to start to have more mentors and advisors to help our students. So it all originated with you all approving the initial $500,000 to get the program started. So thank you.
Well, you recommend.
Dr. Orloff, I also don't want it to escape. IR has come so far.
Thank you. They do very
My
good work.
time here, it might have happened, we wouldn't have known it. And now
Yeah.
we're, not only do we know it, but we're starting to figure out how to make it better.
Yeah.
So.
I will
just a
pass that on
thank
to
you.
my team. Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
for the data, that's you and your team.
Yeah, they do very good work. We're lucky to have them. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, it's been a good news meeting for the Education and Planning Committee today. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Joan, thank you, and a second from. We got a second?
Yeah. I'll send you.
Close the vote. Misty, sorry. That's, we're adjourned.
Thank you, trustee Cushman. Trustee Martin?
Thank you, Chair Gass. We'll call to order the May 7th Education, it should be, there is Finance and Facilities Committee. FLCC. We have the minutes of April 2nd when we were at the Newark campus. Any questions, comments with regard to those minutes? Thank you, Penny, for capturing all that we did there. Jason, welcome.
Good evening.
So please provide us an update. Budget and finance.
All right. Bringing up where we stand with revenues as of March 31st. I'll share that you do see a little bit of a difference between tuition from year over year. That's because our summer bills went out a little bit earlier last year than they did this year. It's about a week difference, but as of April, we're back on track and we're trending above where we were last year. So, so that was a discrepancy I just wanted to point out for you. Other counties, that revenue is slightly down, mainly because of our chargeback rate difference that changed. It decreased last year, so about $100 per FTE. So we will see a little bit of a decrease there, but it is offset with our other counties, our non-residents, because of the initiative that SUNY put forth last year, making sure CRs are filled out by students, the call centers that they set up where we submit data. There's students that haven't submitted a CR. They're actually calling those students and trying to get them to submit those CRs on time. So that number will be lower, hopefully pushing into the other counties of revenue. So it's okay. Miscellaneous revenue is up because of some fees, Gemini fee that we increased from $5 to $7, our online fee, which helps supports our online programming and things. And our push, as you see enrollment, continue to push that way to online, as well as some nursing fees. Expenses, we're tracking with budget. Salaries, fringes up a little bit, but that's some healthcare costs that we're seeing as we go year over year. Equipment, supply expense, utilities, supply and expenses is up from where we were last year. This is a result of prepaids being recognized throughout the year versus just at the end of last year. So that number is trending up in the right direction against budget. So utilities, I think I have just gotta move the budget number around and we'll be back in line there, so. It's probably coded in supply and expenses somewhere.
Questions on the expense side or first of all, revenue side? Rich?
Thank you. I see a couple of holes in the sponsor.
Yeah, so sponsor contribution did come in April, as well as the specific investment came in last week, so.
Oh, so they're
they're-
in-house. They just
Yeah,
didn't make it.
they didn't make it into the March results, but they will be sitting in.
Good question.
Big Steiger.
Other questions? So certainly the revenues are trending in higher percentage than where we are in terms of the year. For the fees, the second line down, is that pretty much all in? Or can we anticipate some more fees
There
there?
will be some more fees for summer. We have our technology fee that will flow through there. So as of April 30th, we had about 1.5 million in fees. So that is up above budget. Yeah, revenues as of April 30th is about 18.7, so versus 18.2 as of April 30th last year.
So it's early, but the $48 million target from a revenue standpoint.
We will be above that.
Thank you. Final questions. Nice report.
I do want to, before we get into resolutions, also share, current landscape in the federal government and things that we've been seeing. And just share a few numbers, programs that have been targeted in the latest announcement from the president. Federal work study, SEOG potentially being eliminated. So some numbers there, 152,000 has been designated to FLCC for next year. 193,000 for SEOG. So about 30 to 50 students related to federal work study, and about 564 students received some sort of SEOG awards. Pell is another thing that has been talked about, federal government, as far as changing that program. FLCC received approximately about 8.5 million this year. About 1,800 students are in that. So that's just wanted to share that publicly as far as some of the numbers that, we receive from these programs that, are being talked about. And, hopefully, there is pushback on these programs and what they do provide to our students. So we'll continue evaluating it as it comes through and what that impact looks like. But just wanted to share that with you guys.
I'm curious, thank you for that. What SUNY's reporting to you, to the cabinet? What kind of information is flowing at a statewide level to, let's say, your area of responsibility?
We had a call with the chancellor today.
Okay.
Talking about some of this. And right now, staying the course as far as where we are. Hopefully, there's a lot of momentum that they can continue pushing up into Congress and the Senate about the importance of these programs. What they do.
So there is some effort.
There is
on
some
SUNY's
effort,
part
yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Okay. Others, reactions, comments, questions? Public? Okay, thank you for that sobering update.
Yeah.
We do have some resolutions. Would like just a few, brief?
Yep.
Please.
First one is approval of policy to approve the creation of the elimination of balloons on campus, except for academic purposes.
So no balloon.
No balloons, no helium balloons, especially helium. Questions?
Doesn't look like the trustees want to touch that one. Right ahead. Keep going.
The second resolution was to approve our single audit, 23-24. And we had one finding related to that. It was in our GLBA, just updated policies and procedures there. We did contract with Bonadio to help assess that and provide a risk assessment, formal risk assessments. So that was in the single audit report. So
Keep going.
What it is, or what it is.
The next one is to approve a contract for human resources consulting services with Grand River. This will help with our support needed related to Title IX equity support services. So this contract is utilized, or we piggyback off of our UNYCC group, which is our upstate New York group. They have an agreement with them that we can tap into those services and pay out of this rate. So
Questions? No? Anything else, Jason, you want to bring in front of the board?
And last thing, and I'll have a more formal update, is our grant revenue. So I know we had a resolution in October, November timeframe as far as our budgeted revenue. I just wanted to share some numbers with you. So this year, 5.6 million in budgeted revenue. Grant activities. This includes any of our private, state, and federal awards. To date, we've had $3.4 million in actual expenses with 3.1 million in actual revenue. So some of the differences between our budgeted revenue versus what we've actually spent, you know, time elapsed, you know, we're through May. Title III, we did have a little bit of a late start. That did start in October from a grant perspective, but we are catching up on that. So as far as hiring individuals. So just wanted to share from a grant perspective where we sit there.
Great. Thank you. Final questions of the trustees. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
See a motion to adjourn, please. Jeff, thank you. And Rich, seconds. Turn it back to you, Chairman Cass.
Thank you, Trustee Martin. I'd like to call to order the Board of Trustees meeting, May 7th, 2025. Is there anybody on the line? Okay, Trustee Hall, could you meet me at the podium? See if we can recreate that. Dr. Knight, come on.
Would you like me to be a picture?
Sure.
Yes, please.
Absolutely.
Applause. I have a resolution of appreciation to Trustee Misty Hall. Whereas Misty Hall was elected by the student body of Finger Lakes Community College on May 1st, 2024 to serve as student trustee. And whereas Misty Hall has competently served Finger Lakes Community College as a student representative on the Board of Trustees from August 7th, 2024 through June 4th, 2025. And whereas Misty Hall was always conscientious in her role as student trustee and displayed dedication and accurate representation for the student body in a professional and thoughtful manner. She has been considerate of student-related topics discussed at the Board of Trustees meetings and offered valuable insight about student perspective. And whereas Misty Hall presented as a well-informed ambassador through her participation with SUNY and NYCCT student trustee meetings on behalf of the college. And whereas Misty Hall was a recipient of the Chancellor's Award for Student Excellence, exhibiting as a well-rounded student, balancing leadership, academic excellence, and community service. And now there be it resolved that the FLCC Board of Trustees expresses its sincere appreciation to Misty Hall for her dedicated service to Finger Lakes Community College and to students attending Finger Lakes Community College. Thank you very much.
Official picture.
Yes.
Yeah. We're gonna take 2, 3, and close up. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
Well, I'm just very thankful and grateful to have been able to serve in this position. When I came to FLCC, I started out in a 4-year school and I was not doing very well. And so I came to FLCC for a fresh start. And it was honestly one of the best choices I've ever made. I was very successful in my academics, which I don't think I would have been at my 4-year school. And it's really helped me just grow my path and my pursuits in my future. And I owe it a lot to FLCC. So thank you for this.
Yes.
Misty, could you just tell the board one of the things that you mentioned when we were at the chancellor's meeting about your experience at FLCC and how much you were more prepared than other students entering their junior year of the nursing program at Nazareth and what it meant to you?
Yeah, so I'm at nursing school at Nazareth for this semester while also taking credits here. And a lot of my cohort took all of their general education credits at Nazareth, whereas I took them at FLCC. And a lot of my cohort's really struggling with specifically anatomy and physiology and then microbiology. And they've really been struggling because they just don't have the resources that FLCC has. And I just feel like I am so better well off than a lot of my friends just because of the care that the professors provide, but also the different resources like the HoloLens, the anatomy table, the tutoring services. You just really get the personalized care at FLCC. Unlike I see at other 4-year schools, they really don't have that care and dedication to their students, so.
You didn't take that on the road, holy Mary. Maybe not. Jeepers. That's really quite a story.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda minutes and resolution? I'll move. Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Was old business, new business.
Confirming all of
Dr.
the
Knack.
resolutions that came out.
How can you follow up Misty's comment?
Yes, there's nowhere to go.
And all the other good things have been said. I just want to highlight a few things very briefly. One, it's already been brought up a little bit about, the federal government and activities going on. Jason mentioned some of them. I mentioned some in my report as well. And, the chancellor did give a great, session today. I'm going to put out a message to the college either Friday or Monday. It'll include some of the good things that the chancellor talked about, and some things we've already decided we're doing. One, we're staying the course with everything we do. We're going to follow our values and continue doing what we're doing. We're an open access institution who accepts any student who wants to come to our doors and help them succeed like Misty, number one. We have our college values, and we're going to continue to follow them and follow what the state and SUNY is providing us, which is top cover for things that come down if there's any efforts in terms of directing us to do specific DEI things now and in the future. I have Dr. Covington looking into that as well, and we'll be briefing you in the near future about more activities with that. But right now, as been mentioned before, we're staying the course. There's nothing we need to be doing any differently. We have been working with our international students. I personally sent each of them an email. Our enrollment staff and Dr. Abatis are working with the international students, getting them ready for the summertime for them, so they make sure that they're ready, if they're going to stay here, what they need to do to be able to stay here and do so under what is going to be greater scrutiny of our international students in the future. But I think we're okay for the moment. The chancellor put out something that was heartening news today, because I've been reading different information about students and deportations. And in the state of New York with SUNY, he mentioned that there have been 46 students that have been notified for deportation, and then it was suddenly reversed. So there have been no students in SUNY at this point that have been directed to be deported at this point in time. Said something that's really good. He said that we're going to litigate, educate, and legislate in terms of what is going on. So really good 3-word definition of what we're going to do in terms of facing the controversies that we're facing right now. And they're going to continue, as Jason mentioned about funding at this point in time. We just have to be leaning forward. We're looking at various, we're planning and leaning forward and thinking, okay, what ifs, but not, like something's going to happen right now. We've got to do this or that. It's important we let folks know we're going to continue what we're doing. We're doing what we're doing. We're going to lose some funding. Okay, and we're going to have to adapt and adjust for a certain period of time. Some of that funding is already being contested in courts, and we're just going to have to go through the motions. I said before during COVID, 2 things. I had an analogy that we were in a hurricane, and I think now we're kind of in a flood. Okay, and I feel like right now the flood's only at our ankles, maybe rising up a little bit above our calves, and it's inconvenient and it's frustrating and it's no fun. Okay, but we'll get through this as well, and it's going to take time. And you really have to think about these things in the moment. If you've been, and I've used this analogy, and I'll use a second one in a minute. If you've been around in 1968, and you had the emotions that were going on there, we forget that we've been through these challenges in different ways before in the past. And in 1968, you had a very unpopular war. You had protests on campus that engulf and oversize anything that we've seen thus far in the past year and a half. You had political assassinations of Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King. You had the Chicago police in blue helmets brutally beating peaceful demonstrators at Democratic national conventions. You had bombings, you had riots in cities. In Washington, D.C., only the Capitol survived the area. If you go north of the Capitol, it was devastated. It was a tough time. Those who were there, it was really difficult. So we'll get through this time as well. It's just going to be very emotional in how we do it. And we as leaders have to be able to let folks know, look, we're thinking, we're planning, we're doing the best we can. We're going to get through this together. And I firmly believe that. So that's where we're at, and we're staying the course. We're taking care of our students. We'll take care of our faculty and staff, and we'll continue to do what we do. And we just have to know that we have to be ready that this is going to be a marathon. It's not going to be a sprint, and it's going to be an emotional marathon. Great book I've been reading. If you ever want to see something else to read, it's worth the read of the presidential portion of it alone. It's a book called Grant, biography of Ulysses Grant. And it's by Ron Chernow, Chernow. And you don't have to read the military stuff for his early childhood life. If you'll simply read the presidency aspects and what was going on in 1876 in his last year of his presidency, and compare it to what we've been in the past 4 years, there are a lot of comparisons, but we overcame those as well. So that's where we're at. And speaking of international students, we're still recruiting and we're still bringing in students, both for online and face-to-face. And I gave you a report, the information Carol provided me about where we're at with students. And we're at a similar pace where we were last year. And those students bring great vitality to our college. Doesn't mean it's going to last that way, but we're going to continue to do what we're doing. That's the bottom line. And then finally, if you look at it, we never give ourselves enough credit for what goes on. We have graduation coming up. And commencement coming up, and it is the time where we truly celebrate our successes. And we've got 3 great graduations coming up with the full commencement, the nursing and the EMS program next week, and look forward to seeing you all there. But in the meantime, in your e-news, and if you want any others, there are multiple capstone exercises or demonstrations of our students' success in the classroom and what they've learned going on at the end of this week, Friday, and into next week. And I will send you a list of some of those that are out there for you to get to above and beyond e-news. I recommend if you get a few minutes, come to listen to them and see the students demonstrate what we're all about and what their synthesis is for things. But it goes beyond that. Our students won for the 4th year in a row the robotics competition at Monroe Community College. Kids 7 other colleges, 4th year. Okay, and it's awesome that things are going on, but it goes into our staff as well. Last week, last week, okay, the day of giving, we achieved our goal and had 336 or so, 322 donors, and we attained how much?
About $34,000, and then that allowed the $100,000 to be unlocked.
And the reason that's phenomenal is then you have an anonymous donor providing $100,000 to match that gift. Now, let's put this in perspective. A month ago, we got the information about what a school near us, twice our size, did, and they brought in the same amount of money, basically, with about 260 donors, and they had a larger staff. We were punching way above our weight in so many different things. We need to be high-fiving more often about what we do. This is a wonderful place to work and be a part of it. I'm just honored to be a part of it, and you get to see those types of activities going at our college, and really looking forward to next week, to that true celebration of the essence of who we are and what we do. And that's my report. Is there any questions?
Thank you, Dr. Knight. Wonderful report, wonderful report.
Very good. Oh, last one, AI think tank. We are way ahead of the curve, and you need to mark your calendars for June 11th for basically about 6 hours of activities of showcasing what AI is going to be and what we can do to support our community with artificial intelligence. Due to a lot of great work from that artificial intelligence think tank that's going on, another initiative that you all funded as a board of trustees, that $100,000 as seed money is phenomenal to help us jumpstart into being a leader in that area for our college and our community and for our students down the road. So thank you. That's my report.
Thank you.
I promise I'm done now.
You keep going.
Yeah, yes, it's all great.
Okay, trustee Astles, board officer nominating committee.
I'd like to thank trustee Geis and Haley for assisting. And the nominating committee will be recommending the same slate of officers for next year that we have this year.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Hall, student trustee report.
We had Flick's 10th birthday May Day celebration last week. It was a great turnout for students. And then I also went last Tuesday to Albany to accept the Chancellor's Award with Nessa. And we were just surrounded by so many well-rounded students. Like, you read the bios of the students and they were all doing tremendous things. So it was a really good moment for FLCC to have 2 very strong students there. Yeah.
Thank you. Trustee Astles, FLCC audit and ERM committee.
Nothing to disapprove the resolutions. So.
Okay. I have the association report. It's in the packet. Foundation.
The golf tournament is coming up, and Penny sent you all a form that you can send out, fill out and send back in if you'd like to make a contribution for the golf tournament, or if you would like to play. And that is due by Wenbury or Penny.
The golf tournament is May, so we'll be before that.
Oh, okay, all right. So keep that in mind. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Trustee Cushman, NYCCT.
Corporate NYCCT.
NYCCT.
NYCCT. 3 things. We did have a spring conference. It was the highest attendance that we've ever had for NYCCT for a spring conference. We had 38 people, I think 35 in person. A couple were by video. Asia NYCCT is the New York Community College Trustees Association, so it's all 300 trustees around the SUNY system and also the CUNY trustees. So we went through regular business on that. We had a great panel discussion and exploration in how we're going to pursue advocacy moving forward. And we spent the bulk of the afternoon with Rose from Canada. She is with the governance coach, talking about governance and the importance of, it was really highly informative. Chair Cass was there, and of course, Donna Mihalik was there. And I know a couple of colleges are talking to her to engage her services, but what it comes down to is understanding how the policies we do put in place, not only to manage ourselves, but to manage our employee, to give that employee broad authority, guardrails, if you will, and then let them do it. And then basically get less involved with day to day and start to have more work done on the future. So, you know, for example, when you go out to the community, you shouldn't ask, how are we doing? You should be asking, where should we be in 5 years? Where should we be in 10 years? Those kinds of questions. So that's getting us into that mode. So it was a very, very successful conference. Thanks to Mohawk Valley Community College for hosting it. It was, and President Van Wagner. I did do a testimony with the SUNY Board of Trustees, as I try to do when the trustees have their open to the public forum. It was distributed to all of you, so you saw it, but just for the record, it was primarily about local control, the importance of local control, and the ability not to have it dictated centrally, all things centrally, because half our students are not matriculated. They're in all these other programs that have great value to the community. And we can adjust on a dime, and we've shown a great track record on doing that. So that's the basic, whether they heard me or not, I don't know. And lastly, legislative, Dr. Nye mentioned, it looks like things aren't official yet, aren't done yet with the budget, but it looks like there's probably going to be another $8 million in addition to what we got last year to be split among 30 community colleges. But it's on similar terms, it looks like right now. So we're you know, working on that, and there's several bills we're working on for this year and for the coming year. So that's all on NYCCT.
Thank you. Now you can do student corp.
All right, Student Corp. So in the report, I mentioned that the president of Student Corp, Dom, was nominated for the SUNY Student Assembly President's Award for Leadership Excellence. He won it. So now that is among 34 colleges, state operated and community colleges. So these are 4-year students.
64.
64.
64. Yeah, right. Wow, my math. So 64. So, but also he's competing against 4-year students. So to Dr. Nye's point about punching above our weight, I'd say so.
Hire him now.
Let's believe it. And Dom had come in and presented to us on the Flick statute, which is the second item, which they did not, well, it's been killed. So we're not going to do that. But you'll see in the report that they came up with something really fantastic to replace that. That's their annual gift. So what they're working with our, I guess it is the horticulture department or whoever does trees and bushes, as academically.
That's for the record. If it's such a bird name, I like this.
So the gift is
Be a new building.
is to add all of it's like 30 odd trees and bushes,
Really?
which actually gives us all the different varieties we need to qualify for. So if somebody's getting a certificate in for nursery or what have you, they have to be able to go somewhere and visually see all of those, we can do that now. So it becomes a place, it'll not only beautify the campus, it's gonna be coordinated with the academic side to where should these things be put, how should they be, they'll be maintained indefinitely. And, it's fabulous because this is a learning experience as well. So it's a lot better than a bench that we can sit on. I mean, this is actually gonna improve our academics and so forth. So kudos to the, student, corps for their leadership this year.
Thank you, trustee Cushman. A motion to adjourn.
So
Oh, boy,
that was a quick,
this is quick, right?
this one too, I've ever seen.
Did I get a second?
Jeff?
Okay.
I think Jeff motion, I'll take the second.
All in favor? Thank you very much.
Everybody.
Wow.